you're new to the channel, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe button, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought about today's video. And before I begin, I always want to preface by saying I am not a basketball expert. I'm just a fan who's naturally obsessed. And today, we're going to talk about briefly another hypothetical situation, because if you're a returning subscriber, returning viewer, you know I love my hypothetical situations. I don't like to speculate, but I love to just think of some hypothetical situations and scenarios. And one of those we're going to talk about today is Joel Embiid and the tweet he sent out last night, which, like the report I previously made a video about with Kevin Durant not talking to the Nets in over a month, I don't think too much into that, and I don't think too much into this right now. I think simply stating, because we know how much Joel Embiid and Jimmy Butler think of each other, tremendous respect for each other, and Joel Embiid even said after that series loss to Miami, I don't know why we let him go, meaning he wishes he was still playing with Jimmy Butler. So that's why I think most of us are thinking a little too far ahead into the future, being like, oh, what does this mean? Does he want to go to Miami? Does he want to... It could simply just mean if Jimmy Butler had another star player playing with him, they'd be a lot better and probably in better position to make the NBA Finals than they appear to look right now against the Boston Celtics. But let's just say we find out this tweet does indeed indicate that Joel Embiid would like to be traded to the Miami Heat to play with Jimmy Butler. Why would that happen? Well, potentially, he's not a big fan of the situation that the Sixers have put themselves in. A little too reliant on Ben Simmons, even though I've already said I personally am a fan of Ben Simmons. I'm not a fan necessarily of all the drama that's surrounded him over the last year, but when I'm talking about I'm a fan of someone, I'm a fan of their basketball talent. And Ben Simmons is a guy, he is what he is. Tremendous defensive player, and doesn't have a jump shot, doesn't really have a shot, period. But he never tries to be something that he's not, which I can respect about a basketball player. Because trying to be something you're not, you get a Russell Westbrook. Someone who's continuously trying to do everything and be something that they're not and putting your team in jeopardy. So I can respect, if you know you're not good at something, not trying to do it. But what I would like to see more out of, getting a little off topic here, it's in my mind, I'd like to bring it up. What I would like, though, I know he's working on his shooting, but we need to see some results of that. And I know we're not going to see results as long as he's off the floor, but I'm pretty confident we're going to be seeing Ben Simmons on a basketball court this upcoming year. Now, back to the actual topic we're talking about. The 76ers, too reliant on Ben Simmons from the beginning, ended up being the figuratively meaning death of them. He completely put them in a terrible situation where they had to move off of him to acquire James Harden. Gave up, in my opinion, a little too much for James Harden, but what other options are you left with at that point? And James Harden, he didn't really put them in a bad situation necessarily, but I don't think anything about James Harden outside of the first week he was in Philadelphia, when he felt a little rejuvenated and recharged and was excited to be back with Daryl Morey, whom he had a great relationship with in Houston. I think once that wore off, he didn't put them in a bad situation necessarily, but he did not really do anything extraordinary to put them in a position to succeed. Aged 3 or 4 years practically overnight, it seemed like. He's nowhere near... He's James Harden right now is the perfect example of what I like to use as an analogy for all-time transcendent talents, because James Harden is. When James Harden was in his prime, he was an all-time great transcendent scorer. He was. The numbers back it up, so don't even try to argue that. He is. But once all-time greats reach a certain point where they start to fall off that cliff, out of their prime, and start to age very rapidly, we see moments. We see moments of just pure disaster. Can't even believe that they used to be this all-time great player. But there's moments, very few and far between, but there are moments where they put on a performance that kind of turns back the clock, and you see like, okay, that's not quite as good as you used to be, but there's still a beast inside it. That's how I feel about James Harden. James Harden is the guy who every once in a while he can bring it out, but it's very few and far between. So that being the case, and him being a free agent and wanting, apparently, from what I'm hearing and what all of you I'm sure have heard, wants max money, that's going to put them in a bad situation whether they choose to keep him or choose to move off of him. Because if they choose to move off of him, well, you gave up all that capital for nothing. And if you choose to keep him, you have all that money wrapped up in a player that the entire time he's on that team, the storyline is going to always follow, is he worth the money they're paying? Is he worth the money we're paying? And it's not an uncommon theme to follow players around this day and age. We see players all the time that people ask the question, are they overpaid? Are they underpaid? And it's always brought up. Contracts and financial situation. It's always a big topic in the NBA. But with that being the case, and with the 76ers, they have a good mix of young talent. I love Matisse Thybulle as a defensive player. I love Tyrese Maxey. But where is the consistent... And Tobias Harris. I really like Tobias Harris, but like James Harden, to a much lesser extent, I think Tobias Harris is much more consistent, but for the money you're paying him, there's a lot of question that's been asked about Tobias Harris. Is he worth the money they're paying him? And I thought Tobias Harris had a really good year. I think he earned his money this year. Would have liked to see a little bit more out of him, but I thought all in all, he had a very good season and was one of the few consistencies surrounding Joel Embiid all year long. That being said, we have that situation in Philadelphia. We have Joel Embiid. Like Kevin Durant, is kind of potentially dependent on the future of Kyrie Irving in Brooklyn. I think a lot of potential what Joel Embiid may or may not want to do will depend on what Philadelphia chooses to do with James Harden. But let's just say again, hypothetical. Not saying it's going to happen, not saying I think it will happen or should happen, just hypothetical situation. Joel Embiid wants to go to Miami. Well, in a trade like that, going to Miami, you'd have to send back a pretty good chunk of capital to get Joel Embiid, because you're talking about a guy, one, he's going into the last year of his current contract, making only $33.6 million this year, which is a steal for a guy who I personally think should have been the MVP, but ended up finishing second in MVP voting, just made All-NBA second team. So you're getting a guy who's playing at the very top of the league. You're getting one of the 3 to 5 best players in basketball right now, in my opinion. So what's it going to look like? I don't really know what a trade would look like for Joel Embiid other than one for sure piece. And the Heat would have to give up Bam Adebayo for two reasons. One, the 76ers would want to replace that body in the starting lineup. And Bam Adebayo, he has some deficiencies in his game, absolutely, but he is one of the top 7, 8, maybe I'm lowballing there. I'd have to really think about it, but for sure one of the top 7 or 8 centers in basketball. And in fact, I'm saying it out loud, and I know I'm one of the top 6 centers in basketball. So you get that, and the Heat would want to give him up too, because when you have a Joel Embiid, why are you gonna move Bam to power forward? No, you're not gonna do that. So there's no need for a Bam Adebayo if you're getting a Joel Embiid. I'm sure the Sixers would want some of those young pieces that Miami has, whether that's a Tyler Hero, who I know is absolutely beloved in Miami. The coaching staff love him. His teammates love him. I don't know what that looks like, and nor do I care to speculate. I just think that they're going to want some of those young assets, and they need to move fast. Kyle Lowry, I mentioned in a video prior to the playoffs starting, I have been very unimpressed with Kyle Lowry all regular season, and I talked about how his postseason experience needs to be a factor this year for this trade that they made to be deemed a success. And it hasn't been. It really hasn't been. So I really think right now in Miami, because you have Eric Spoelstra, who's a top coach in the NBA. You have so many promising pieces for the future. You need to swing for it. You need to swing for it, whatever that may look like, whether it's Joel Embiid, whether it's someone else. But you're in a position right now where you need to do something very smart, strategic, but swinging for that home run. Don't play it safe. You got to go hard for this. You have to go hard for this. But that being said, again, guys, pure hypothetical situation. It's an interesting topic given the storyline surrounding Jimmy Butler and Joel Embiid the last couple weeks. But I'd really like to know where you're at. Let me know what you guys think, if this tweet means something, if it doesn't mean anything, and if Joel Embiid does get traded, does he go to Miami or does he go to somewhere else? Let me know. And please, guys, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe button, comment down below. Let me know what you thought about today's video, and I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks, guys.